This is Casual Babble.
Hello. Hope you are doing well. BC Babbles here, and tonight I wanted to take the opportunity to discuss a particular creative approach that I've had and been using for years in content creation, and one that I think can be used in the creation of anything, quite honestly, not just within podcasting, but well outside of those parameters. It's one that I found through trial and error, one that I found really without having any kind of approach to begin with, honestly, and one that I've realized that once I truly had it tried and true and really turned it into a bit of a template, has proven to be really invaluable to really any and all of my creative work for over the past decade. And this is coming from somebody who has been creating audio video content for at least 17 years, going back to early high school. This approach, though, has helped to consolidate processes. It's helped to self-educate myself on how to find the elements needed to bring a vision to life. And it's really made the creative process exponentially more exciting and enjoyable, which I used to think was impossible, but this truly has done that. The approach I'm talking about is the approach of always being final product oriented in your creation and in podcasting. Now, this was not my first topic that I was going to bring to the table. In fact, my original one I thought was quite different. But after some contemplation, I realized my initial topic was really just kind of a subtopic of this one, of being final product oriented. My initial topic focused about podcasting gear. You know, when we are on the outside of the podcasting sphere looking inward to all these storytellers, all these creators who have these studios, the furniture, the backdrops, the LED lighting, the microphones. I only just bought this, by the way, so this is very recent. The tables, the crew, it seems, they have this huge budget almost, right? And when you're beginning your podcasting journey, you don't always have the budget for all that. And a lot of that stuff is expensive, right? And this is coming from somebody who, when they began their podcasting venture, had only enough money to purchase a GoPro on a payment plan and otherwise had to use the production studio of their local workplace. Thankfully, I was in radio at the time, so I knew what to use. But not everyone has that even. And so my original topic was about how the quality of the gear you have does not necessarily dictate the quality of your final product. Same thing, basically, right? Now, in that particular topic, I was going to discuss gear more in depth, the microphones, the audio production programs, the hosts, how to set up a home studio, but most importantly, I was going to discuss the real importance of podcasting, which was knowing to truly understand the 3-tier process that not only podcasters follow, but also that professional set crews follow, from Game of Thrones to your favorite movie or other television series, which is pre-production, production, and post-production. And my argument in that original topic was going to be, if you can master those 3 steps, especially pre- and post-production, then even if you had the cheapest gear on the market for recording your show, you'd still be able to bust out some pretty high-quality content. Because in my experience, and I'll give you a story here momentarily, you can take a Marantz recorder and a shotgun mic And if you know what you're doing, and if you know what you want to see at the end of it, you can create something so high quality that you impress a doctorate of audio engineering whose professional networking circle includes the audio engineer for Game of Thrones. Here's the story. 2015, spring semester. Audio production 1 course, Appalachian State University. My first ever audio production course, the final project was to create a news story called Appalachian Comment. You could make it on anything involved in the school or the local community that you wanted. Me, I'm a big music fan, and I chose to focus on the Appalachian Opera Workshop. And because I was in the beginner level course, all I had available to me was a Marantz recorder and a shotgun mic. And I needed to create this story, this elegant story that captured opera, that captured my voice because it was a narration. But I've seen so many commentaries, documentaries. I've seen so many instances of that same kind of medium. So I envisioned what I'd like to be able to sit there and hear and even see. Now, this project wasn't visual, it was all audio. But in audio production, you always play with the theater of the mind. So envisioning visuals is still important. So I sat there and I developed this idea in my head. How I'd like for the opera music to come in, to not rise too high, stay at the perfect floor level to be heard, but then to be easily superseded by my voice as I came in for the narration, and allow both my voice and the opera music to dance with each other on levels. And then how I wanted that to transition into the interviews I had with the teachers and the students, and how I would fade them in and out of different songs performed at the opera workshop to really bring about this smooth transitional experience for the listeners. Well, I allowed that vision to be a thing, and we'll get into that. Submitted the project, and then one day, as I'm hanging out in the radio station, as I always did, my teacher, Dr. Stephen McCreary, came and found me and pulled me out of the station. Said, I got to talk to you. And he asked me, did I really create what I had submitted to him for the project? He didn't think I had. He thought I had recorded something off of YouTube or, freaking Pandora or SoundCloud or something, and submitted that as my sound, aside from my narration. I said, no, that was me. I recorded all that stuff. And he was like, how'd you record it? Oh, I said, I went to the rehearsal, plugged up the Marantz recorder, aimed the shotgun mic, recorded when they were performing, rehearsing their parts, went and I interviewed this teacher and that teacher, and then I went into one of the production booths here at the complex and I put it together. And he asked, so you're confirming everything on that is yours? And I said, yes, that's all my stuff. And he said, okay, all right, because it was really good. And I wasn't sure if it was yours. And that moment, aside from being potentially insulted, I chose to reflect on the fact that despite being so late in the game, despite only kind of half knowing what I was doing because this was my first class, I still managed to create something of such a high quality that an experienced and seasoned audio engineer questioned the legitimacy of my work. And that for me told me everything I needed to know. This is my realm. This is where it is. And so I realized that was able to happen because I was final product oriented. I knew what I wanted to myself or have someone else sit down and listen to and experience before I created the thing. You see, the importance of being final product oriented is that once you have that vision, it allows you to then reverse engineer the process. If you understand what it is you want to see at the end for a project, audio or audio and video, if you let yourself see it and accept the vision you have, then you can break down what it is you see in your mind's eye and you begin to understand, okay, if I want to bring about this thing, I have to find these things. And so then you go and find those things. Sometimes it's easy to find some of the things, other things may be a little tougher to find. But because you know what you want to see, you know what to look for. And sometimes knowing what to look for, that's half the battle, or that's most of the battle. And then you just go and find those things. And then once you find those things, they begin to fall in your lap. You start arranging them. And then as you begin to arrange these things that your vision has taught you to seek out and collect for the project, you start to see, you have this experience where you start to compile and arrange these puzzle pieces. And it's that moment where you begin to recognize the image that those puzzle pieces are creating. And for me, as a creator, that's always been the best moment when not only have I had a vision of something, but I've managed to find the things and arrange the puzzle pieces to where I begin to see that image in real time begin to manifest in front of me. That I get so excited when that happens. I don't think anything else, aside from being done with the project, for me, I get the giddiest when that begins to happen. I used to be referred to as a transitions guy because I would find ways to let one element feed and flow into another and I would have the craziest Adobe Premiere and or Audition session files. They looked insane, but when you played it, it was awesome work. To toot my own horn. Now here's another objective or an obstacle that we face as creators. It's often the question of, well, God, I've seen this podcast and that podcast and this podcast and those podcasts. How do I make something that's that good? How can I make something that's on that same level? Now, there's this illusion that occurs in those moments, or we realize in that moment there's an illusion that's taken place, a glamour that we sometimes experience as creators, because a lot of people have done this or that or those things already. And so to us, it sets a bar. But here's the illusion. When we ask ourselves, can I make something that's on that same level? The illusion is that what really truly tends to make us think that something someone else has put out there is somehow better than anything that we can create is not that it technically or analytically is better than what we can or have made before. It's actually the simple fact that it's already out there. Let me back that up. The illusion that everyone else's work is better than ours is not that it's actually better or that it's analytically more sophisticated. The illusion is that we convince ourselves that those things are better because they're simply already out there. Because some part in the back of our heads tells us someone has looked at this and decided it's good enough to be out there. And somehow we convince ourselves that we can't do that. That's the illusion. You gotta let that go. And another big thing about being final product oriented is that it challenges you to accept your creativity, to allow yourself to see something creative in your head and not question it or not try to simplify it because your own insecurities, your own imposter syndrome tells you can't make it to that same level. It challenges you to allow yourself to accept the creativity that you have. See, the things I'm the proudest of, if I let those voices, that insecurity, that imposter syndrome convince me to simplify those visions because there's no way I could match what else I've seen out there, I would have never made anything before in the past. Those things would have never happened. Being final product oriented challenges you to not only accept the creativity that you have, despite what's already out there in the digital ether, but it allows you to have the roadmap to not only see this great thing, but to reverse engineer the process so that you can make it happen. I can go on this forever, but I think you get the point. And I'd love to continue discussing this in future occasions. But as a recent interviewee of mine, Catherine Clemitis, said regarding her art teacher, don't ever take a particular direction in art unless there is a purpose for it at the end. Again, don't ever take a particular direction in art unless you have a purpose for it at the end. Be final product oriented. Allow yourself to be final product oriented, and you'll succeed a lot more than you think. I wish you the best of luck.